LGBTQ plus means business. Visit Lauderdale is a national model of how diversity is good for business. This week, the Greater Fort Lauderdale LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce held a luncheon that focused on travel to South Florida and LGBTQ's important role in it. Broward County in South Florida is one of the largest LGBTQ plus travel destinations in the world. So when Visit Lauderdale's Executive Director Stacy Ritter is the keynote speaker, it got our attention. Visit Lauderdale is the presenting sponsor for next month's Pride of the Americas and is vital in promoting Broward County to the worldwide LGBTQ plus community. Ritter was introduced by Out 100 recipient Richard Gray, Vice President of Visit Lauderdale. She explained her challenge in the environment Fort Lauderdale faces in a world dominated by the hateful and regressive politics that we are seeing from Tallahassee while promoting their travel destination. Ritter had a heart-to-heart and frank conversation of what we all face. She joked, quote, "I might get fired for what I am going to say," end quote. She then adds, speaking to Gray directly, quote, "That means you get fired too," end quote. The room erupts in laughter as if to say we absolutely get the joke and Ritter isn't going anywhere. She talks about a culture of what she calls, quote, "mediocre white men," end quote, who are decision makers on what America and the world perceives of Florida as a place of growing culture wars. She provides an example of guns in public and then talks about strapping one on and then says, quote, "Oh wait, with this crowd, I shouldn't make that joke," end quote. It was funny. She made her point. After the presentation, I asked her how other visitor destinations outside of South Florida react to her leadership values on diversity. She says on other visitor bureaus, quote, "I am disappointed in my colleagues because they don't unite. I'm disappointed because I am an outlier. Our role in tourism is advocacy," end quote. She continues with an example in Central Florida and how the Orlando tourism industry reaped destination publicity on Don't Say Gay Bill, but then does not vigorously defend Disney when they are facing the attacks, including Governor DeSantis and Reedy Creek. It is clear that we are watching leadership in a destination of Broward County and tourism that is very unique in Florida and America. It is also very clear that this embracement of their campaign, Everything Under the Sun, is an incredible success, as Ritter and Gray report at the luncheon that the county's bed taxes for 2022 exceeded $100 million for the first time in history. They also report that in February, a world cruise record will be achieved as 4 full-ship LGBTQ plus cruise ship charters will depart from Port Everglades, carrying more than 11,000 visitors. Her presence at the GFL-GLCC is proof positive that the embracement of diversity is good for business. I love this story. Obviously, I was present for it. I'm a big cheerleader of LGBT tourism and embracement. Broward County, of course, Dade County too. We live in South Florida broadly in arguably the single most successful LGBT tourism destination in the world. I would compare us and argue step for step, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, if we're not even above that, especially because of the tip over of the cruise industry. I thought her embracement was breathtaking because it takes a lot for an executive director of a political arm, because really at the end of the day, tourism for a bureau can, it has political restraints because it is funded and generated by public taxes and bed tax, etc. So brave of her. And I thought her answers of what she feels outside of South Florida. Of course, we know the Miami Bureau and the Broward Visit Lauderdale Bureau and how they step up for LGBT. One of those great voices in America is sitting at the table tonight. I thought her analysis on Orlando was really, really interesting. Orlando benefited from publicity and visibility, and then do not vocally defend Disney. And she feels like she's an outlier in bureaus in other places in Florida and around the country as a result of it. I thought very interesting.
Stacey Ritter was, I believe last year, was honored at Diversity Honors by the Pride Center, and it's for a reason, because she is truly an ally and truly stands up for the LGBTQ plus community, first of all. Second of all, it's starting to get national attention. I think I saw today that Shangela actually, her tour is coming to Orlando, and she was quoted as saying, "I'm bringing this tour to Florida because I think Florida needs to dance and laugh." And so this is, and it's going to become harder and harder to make us a leading LGBTQ destination. I mean, you can remember, Al, when there were cruise ships that wouldn't go to the Bahamas because it wasn't a welcoming place. So we are the place where cruise ships leave from. So what's going to happen if we become known as the, don't say gay capital of the world? It's not a good look for our community.
And to your point, another interesting moment when I was at this luncheon listening to Ritter, she makes the point that basically almost on a daily basis, she is getting emails from business community decision makers that come to Broward County. They bring events to Broward County, a convention, a meeting, whatever the business is that would come to Broward County. And they're saying, I'm sorry, we love the destination, we love Broward County, but we can't come. Because what we're watching, and so many of our members and our participants are saying, I'm sorry we have to pass because of what we're watching. And she expresses that sentiment is becoming more commonplace. And at the end of the day, a bureau still has to promote and market the destination regardless, which is another reason why I think her message on diversity was so important.
Yeah, and one of the things that is really important, especially as we address Tallahassee, is to really focus on the business aspect of it. A lot of people think, LGBTQ tourism or tourism in general is just fun, but they don't really look at the business aspect of it. In Miami alone, we welcome nearly 2 million overnight visitors that self-identify as LGBTQ+.
That's stunning. That statistic is a stunning statistic.
Yeah. The financial impact of that number is in the billions. And we look at the residents here, in South Florida, our financial impact is $8 billion.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's not something that you can just sort of dismiss. And I think that that's going to be very critical in how we inform Tallahassee of the importance of this segment and this community.
Yeah, and one of the things that jumps off of the page to me on that observation, and having listened to Ritter, is you can have both things. You can have diversity, embracement, everything under the sun, and embrace all of the components of community. You can embrace race, you can embrace trans, you can embrace handicaps and other kinds of marginalized communities and still be successful. They're not mutually exclusive, which I think is really important in what you just said on the impact in Miami-Dade County. And the other thing that I think is really important is in South Florida, while we feel like we are a purple state and we're losing the battle, if you gauge it based on the midterm elections, you cannot in Florida ignore Miami-Dade County and Broward County and Palm Beach County. You cannot, because basically you're looking at about 35 to 45% of the entire state's population. But more than that, in terms of tourism numbers, it is an overwhelming number in South Florida. The only thing that even comes close is Orlando. And even that, South Florida outproduces what people think is the biggest tourism destination in the world. No, it's not Central Florida. It's South Florida. And so Tallahassee cannot ignore what goes on down here. And so as a result, she makes the point that diversity is good for business. Yeah. And our business is gigantic. And so we should be paying attention to diversity. She makes, I think, quite an excellent point.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. like this broadcast, and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+ community.